This is chapter 9 of Canto 7. And chapter 9 of Canto 7 is Prahlada's offering prayers to Lord Nrsingadev, because Lord Nrsingadev has become too much angry because of the offenses, many offenses, horrible offenses made to Prahlada. So for protecting Prahlada and annihilating the demon Hiranyakashipu, he finished Hiranyakashipu. He finished all Hiranyakashipu's assistants and soldiers and so forth, and he sat on Hiranyakashipu's throne and was roaring fearfully, and the demigods were very happy that he was finished, because he was terrorizing the universe, demigods included. So they were very relieved and happy that he was finished, the terrorist had finished. But they were afraid of his anger. So Prahlada was designated as the one. So he came forward, and then from the beginning of this chapter 9, he's offering wonderful prayers. We recently discussed a section, few set of verses back in his prayers. He was expressing the exaltedness of Lord Brahma, because Lord Brahma is the one who asked Prahlada to come forward and offer prayers, because he, Lord Brahma, and all the other demigods, Lord Shiva and the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, were unable to pacify. So he's honoring Lord Brahma, the one who asked him to come forward, in various ways, rather than reviewing all of that. But then after describing how Lord Brahma had personal darshan of the personality of Godhead, Vishnu, because Brahma received the instructions, everything, how to construct how to do his service, which was constructing a universe, from Lord Vishnu. But before he had that plan, Lord Vishnu appeared before him. And so he's glorifying Brahma in various ways. And the knowledge of how to build the universe came from the Lord Vishnu in the form of Hayagriva, etc., etc., etc. Then there's a nice section of his expressions of humility, his lack of qualification. I'm disqualified this way, that way. Besides birth and filled with demoniac tendency, he's describing himself as if he's like a materialist, absorbed in worldly this and that, and attracted to worldly this and that. And how is it possible for me to glorify the personality of Godhead with this kind of absorption? It's humility. We discussed, it's his characteristic. Part of his exaltedness is exalted humility, abject humility. And then he discusses that the way that makes it possible is receiving mercy. And then he indicates that he doesn't want mercy just for himself. And then he indicates that he doesn't want mercy just for himself. He doesn't want liberation from the material entanglement just for himself. All living entities were suffering, looking like a little boy, and he's got the body of a little boy, but he's a transcendentalist, absolute transcendentalist. So he's speaking on subject matters, what's coming up in this next section that we'll be discussing this evening about, as if he's an adult, but he's not. But his knowledge is very mature, and he understands the perils of material existence, which includes, number one in the hit parade of material attractions. And he's going to address the uncontrolled senses of the conditioned soul, and how the uncontrolled senses of the conditioned souls prevent them from seeing the Supreme Lord, from so the previous section was please deliver them, but then there's the obstacle, there's uncontrolled senses. So what's the solution if you have uncontrolled senses? Even a lot of mercy may come. Uncontrolled senses, you're not going to, you got to be able to look up here. I will. Yeah. If she got a rubber neck, then you can just look around. Okay. Uncontrolled senses. I'll recite the Sanskrit because, in these two verses, because Srila Prabhupada recites the Sanskrit to these two verses a lot. I mean, you'll recognize them. If you're accustomed to hearing Srila Prabhupada speaking, recorded lectures of Srila Prabhupada, and not necessarily just on these verses, but they're verses that characterize the expression of a Vaishnava who's concerned about the misfortune of those that are not devotees, those that are not Vaishnavas. And what they immerse themselves in, minus Krishna, they immerse themselves in material affairs. So that the Sanskrit is choice and very much favored by our founder Acharya. So I'm going to start with reading verse number 44. Photo. 45. I think before I read 45, I should read 44, because the way 45 begins, it's pretty strong. My dear Lord Nrsingadev, this is text 44, 9/7/9/44. I see there are many saintly persons, indeed, but they are interested only in their own deliverance, not caring for the big cities and towns. They go to the Himalayas or the forest to meditate with vows of silence, Mona Vrata. They are not interested in delivering others. As for me, however, I do not wish to be liberated alone, leaving aside these poor fools and rascals. I know that without Krishna consciousness, without taking shelter of your lotus feet, one cannot be happy. Therefore, I wish to bring them back to shelter at your lotus feet. So this next section is the obstacles. It's the obstacles is uncontrolled senses, and just get ready. It's Prabhupada. It's Prahlada. It is just repeating Prahlada, but here we go. Sex life is compared to the rubbing of two hands to relieve an itch. Grihamedis, so-called grihastas, who have no spiritual knowledge, think that this itching is the greatest platform of happiness, although actually it is a source of distress. The kripanas, the fools who are just the opposite of brahmanas, are not satisfied by repeated sensuous enjoyment. Those who are dhira, however, who are sober and who tolerate this itching, are not subjected to the sufferings of fools and rascals. So the previous verse is wanting the deliverance of everyone who are suffering, and then he's indicating, it's it's very pointed in particular to a particular type of sense gratification, but it's just like eating. And these four: eating, sleeping, mating, defending, the four animal propensities. So everyone is eating because we can't survive without eating. And then sleeping, we can't function properly without sufficient rest. Defending, to protect the body from harm, etc. That's an animal propensity. And then the sex is another animal propensity. So the unrestricted tendency of any of these four is problematic. And so he's chosen of the four to focus on this one. So that's our topic. Now this illustration comes straight from the internet. The senses are strong like serpents, but when engaged in the Lord's service, they become harmless like serpents with broken fangs. No, that's a nice illustration. There's a fellow dealing with a serpent and looks pretty dangerous. But if he has broken fangs, one might be afraid of a serpent even if he has broken fangs. But if a serpent has broken fangs, he can't really harm you. He can scare little kids or something, or someone that doesn't know that he doesn't have broken fangs. The same message is found. I put another reference because I looked it up. Where does this reference come from? Madhya Lila, chapter 10, text 177. The very same message. It's not in the verse, it's in the purport. Both of these are from purports. It's Prabhupada's language. There are two standard definitions of what is devotional service. And most of you know what those two are, but I'll repeat them so we'll all know. One of them is from Rupa Goswami. He gives a definition of devotion in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It's a text describing bhakti, and specifically bhakti rasa, specifically the ocean or sindhu of bhakti rasa, or specifically the nectar, the amrita of the nectar of devotion, the ocean of the nectar of devotion. So his definition, those of you that know, you can say with me, Anyabhilashata shunyam jnana karma janavratam anukoyena krishnano shilanam bhaktir uttama. That's one, the definition of bhakti. And it's a very important verse because the whole book is about bhakti. So we need to know what bhakti is, and also what bhakti isn't. It's a nice principle of education. A principle of education is when you define something, you say what that something is and what that something isn't. Because if you don't say what that something isn't, it's not a clear definition. I'll give an example. Here's an example. Prabhupada once, when he came to America, he didn't have any instruments. He didn't have any money. He didn't have anything. So at certain point in time, there were some devotees that were going to be going to India, and he asked them to get a mridanga. Because until they had a mridanga, they were using what's available in America. You know, a big bass drum, boom, boom, boom. They literally used those for Harinam. Or a timpani, which is, a concert drum type of thing, where there's a little pedal and you can make the drum head, softer or tighter, and it makes different sounds. Timpani. Classic for in that early period of time was bongo drums. Anyway, without the varieties, he wanted a mridanga, but he had to explain what a mridanga is. So one of the things to say what a mridanga is what it is and what it isn't. Mridanga it's a drum with two heads. Eyeball. It's a drum with two heads, but it's not a bongo drum because the two heads can be like side by side. There's a drum that has two heads, it's on opposite sides. But it's not made of wood because that's got another name, it's coal. But it's clay. So it's not wood, it's clay. And what tightens it is not some little doodads around the edge of the heads, it's some clay. So it's not wood, it's clay. And what tightens it is not some little edge of So he told, and he even told them a good shop to get a good clay mridanga, because you can get clunky ones too. So they came back with a nice mridanga. But he had to tell them what it is and what it isn't. A good definition is inclusive and exclusive. Simple point. So the definition of bhakti does the same. It's what bhakti isn't and what bhakti is. It's not jnana and karma, or a mixture of jnana and karma. Bhakti can be mixed. Jnana Mishra Bhakti, Karma Mishra Bhakti. But that's not pure bhakti. What's pure bhakti? That's the second half. Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. So the definition is where there's activity, shila, and it's following the ways of the pure devotees, anushilana, where there's one purpose. Krishna is to be pleased. That's at the heart of bhakti. Using everything in such a way that Krishna will be pleased. However that is done, that's what bhakti is, and there's descriptions of this type, that type, the other type of bhakti. A bhakti of music, a bhakti of cooking, a bhakti of this and that. Worship. There's different types of and expressions of. But the principle, that the heart, is that Krishna is to be pleased. Then there's another nice definition of bhakti, very, very commonly used by our acharyas, by Srila Prabhupada. And there's what it isn't and what it is. Same thing. Sarva upadi vinir muktam. Upadi means a designation. Like, I'm a sannyasi. And how do you know that? Well, I've got this colored cloth on, that's why. But somebody can wear this colored cloth, doesn't mean they're a sannyasi. It could be the imitation. So, sarva upadi. So the upadi means a designation. So, being freed from designations, sarva upadi vinir muktam, tat paratvena nirmalam. Nirmala is a nice word. No contamination. Mala and nirmala. Prabhupada named one of his disciples Nirmala. It's a nice name, Nirmala. Pure. Then Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam. That's the common part that we hear over and over. Rishikena, Rishikesha. It's Sanskrit grammar. The senses, the Rishikena, are to be engaged in the service of the master of the senses, Rishikesha. Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam. Bhaktir. Uchate. Uchate. It is said that bhakti is engaging the senses in the service of the master of the senses without a conception of designation. So, inclusive and exclusive. So, in order, because Bhakta Prahlada is come into this world to teach the way, to demonstrate the characteristics of, or the symptoms of, pure devotional service. That comes in chapter 10. You can look it up later. I like the verse. When I leave here, I'm going to be another place, and when I'm in the other place, they ask me a verse. I'm going to speak on the following verse, 7.10.3. In 7.10.3 is Prahlad saying to Lord Nrsingadev, you sent me here to this world to teach and demonstrate the symptoms of bhakti. So it's a symptom of bhakti that one is exclusive, fixed in devotional service, like those two definitions. So there's something that gets in the way of pure devotional service. What's that? Uncontrolled senses. And the teaching of senses that are not controlled, that's in Bhagavad Gita, it's in anything to do with yoga. Any system of yoga means the senses have to be directed and controlled. In this very nice BBT painting, it's really clear, there's the five senses illustrated on the front of each of the horses. I've never seen a blue horse, but there's a blue horse. And then there's the mechanism that's meant to steer or guide the senses, and that's the mind, the reins of the horses. And then the intelligence, that's the fellow holding the reins. What's supposed to happen when things are in proper order, the intelligence gives direction to the mind, gives direction to the senses, and then the senses can be controlled. That fellow that's sitting in the back of the chariot's the body, he looks terrified. Oh my God. Because the senses are not controlled. Because the mind is not in order and the intelligence is not in order, and it's a dangerous situation. Uncontrolled, unbridled senses is the phrase that Prabhupada used. Unbridled senses. So the bridle is the part that goes in the mouth of the horse, the bit, and then the steering mechanism is connected to the bridle. Goes around the mouth of the horse and in the bit, within the teeth of the horse. A little pull this way or a little pull that way, the horse knows turn left, turn right. That's the controlling of the senses. The uncontrolled senses is not unbridled senses. So how does this work? This is a little Bhagavad Gita class in the midst of Prahlada Maharaj, but it's right in Prabhupada's purport. That's why we're going there. The hierarchy, this is found in Bhagavad Gita chapter 3. What's the title of chapter 3? Karma Yoga. So, by directing one's activities according to the codes of Dharma, it takes intelligence, it takes some submission to the Vedas, that's the higher intelligence, and then the senses, directed by the mind, do this and don't do that, perform prescribed duties. So this is the sequence. Let's say it together. Indriyani paranyahur, indriyebhya param manaha, manasastu parabodhir, yo bodhe paratastu saha. So it's pretty simple. The indriyas are para, superior to dull matter. And then superior to the senses is the mind. And superior to the mind is intelligence. And yet superior to the intelligence is the soul, saha, pronoun. The soul. The soul is superior. Soul is even higher than the intelligence. So the whole purpose of yoga is to direct all this, to align all of them with one purpose. And what's that one purpose? Serve the Supreme. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam. Yes, that's the definition of bhakti. So if bhakti is giving intelligence, we'll say it this way. For those who are engaged in devotional service, Krishna gives the intelligence. It's a verse in Bhagavad Gita. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupiyantate. Unto whom? Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. So Krishna gives buddhi, and if you're fortunate, you engage in devotional service, and Krishna will give intelligence to align the intelligence, the mind, and the senses, so they're controlled. And by that system, the very next verse in Bhagavad Gita, thus knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, buddhi, or Krishna consciousness, because buddhi yoga and Krishna consciousness are sometimes used interchangeably. And thus, by spiritual strength, conquer the insatiable enemy known as lust. No, it's not fiction. It's not hype. It's a process, a system of yoga. It's possible. Is it a piece of cake? With practice, it's possible, and good association and proper teachings and with a good teacher, then it's possible. And is there a little bit of a struggle? Yes, but with a little bit of a struggle, we'll see this from Bhagavad Gita chapter 6. Senses cannot be controlled with an unbridled mind. So the bridled mind is controlled by can control the senses, and then intelligence can control the mind. So where do you get that nice intelligence from? From Supersoul. Krishna gives, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. Supposing you want to have controlled senses without Krishna, good luck. Or in other words, it's not going to happen. For a while, yeah. And then wait a while. It's unstable. It's not fixed at all. So here's the translation. Nice verse. For one whose mind is unbridled, same phrase, self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means, upaya, strives by proper means, is assured of success. That's my opinion. What's the proper means? That Krishna gives the proper means. So if one receives the teaching of Bhagavad Gita through disciplic succession, you get Krishna's teachings. If you don't follow Bhagavad Gita through disciplic succession, it's a loser. It's nice, but you're not going to get to the destination. You're not going to get to the position of yoga, or of controlled mind, controlled senses, and driven by spiritual intelligence. It's just not going to happen. I mean, there's different ways of saying the same thing. And Prabhupada would say it hundreds of different ways. There are persons that try. And, they to some degree, there's some success. But it's not stable. It doesn't reach the destination. That's for sure. Destination meaning Krishna, knowing Krishna and being with Krishna. It's not there. Without bhakti, it's not there. And so it's not stable. Something. Not zero, but it's not a 10. So this is in connection with the Shringa Chaturdasi, or Prahlada's teachings, or prayers, to Lord Nrsingadev. And this is as we all know, this is the deity in Mayapur, the Ugra Nrsinga deity. And this Ugra Nrsinga deity, is when he's in a position with his fingers raised, poised, ready to rip Hiranyakashipu to pieces. Now, what does that mean for us? It's he, the personality Godhead, Lord Nrsingadev, is prepared to take from our hearts, as Prahlada is praying to him to do. He's prepared to take this distraction of all these yucky, unwanted things within the heart and just remove them with his claws. Rip it out. Well, wait a minute. Not that one. That's my favorite. And that's what we encounter commonly in devotional service. Is it not true? Is it true or not true that when one begins devotional service, there's this tendency to commonly, very quickly rise, and as that quick rising comes, then you, the practitioner of bhakti, starts to find there's unwanted things in the heart that I didn't even know were there, and it's kind of like yuck. And then there's a pause, and you take a deep breath, and you keep going because I didn't know those things were there, but the fact that I now know they're there is because of bhakti. Let me continue with bhakti, and because of continuing with bhakti, they'll be removed. And then you rise a little bit more, and then you rise a little bit more. And then something happens commonly. When submission slackens, the enthusiasm wanes, and I may or may not continue practice at the same level, enthusiasm level that I started, but commonly it dips a little bit, and I start to think, different thoughts, like, how's it possible? Can I get to the stage where I can become completely purified? Since I can't become completely purified, boo-hoo, then my submission slackens. That's Bhaktivinoda Thakur's term. And then there's a little diminishing of enthusiasm and the execution of devotional service. So how to stay in the fire of very strong, determined, enthusiastic, utsahan, nishchaya, dhairya, kind of devotional service. By good association, by a sincere desire to reach the goal. And supposing, there's some obstacles that we hold on to. Commonly that happens. We have our favorite ones. And we don't let go of them so easily. So Lord Nrsingadev is there. He's a good one to appeal to pray to, and has a place of shelter. We heard in yesterday's verse this phrase Maya Sukhaya. Maya Sukhaya. Param Udvahato Vimudhan. Foolish persons, Vimudha persons, they have this affinity for Maya Sukha. So Lord Nrsingadev is a very merciful deity. While he was roaring, as soon as he saw Prahlad, the roaring stopped, the anger subsided, and he placed his hand on his head. Prahlad's body erupted in ecstasy, and he spoke beautiful, beautiful prayers. So it's a nice form of the Lord that we'll be observing his appearance tomorrow. And in along with our worship, just like commonly, along with we have arti, at the end, what do? We sing the Sringapirs. Let us be protected. Please protect us from this distraction of material existence. So now comes some of the graphic stuff. Here's Yan Maitanadi Grihamedi Sukham Hitucham. And if you've heard Prabhupada's lectures, you've heard this hundreds of times. Kandunayena karayor eva dukkha dukkham tripyanti atneha kripana bahu dukkha bhaja kandu vitan manasijam ishaveta dhiraha vishaheta dhira. I read the translation, but here it is again. Sex life is compared to The rubbing of two hands to relieve an itch. Here's the image of someone's got an itch. And we know very well when you scratch an itch, what happens. If it's a serious itch, it doesn't solve the problem. It irritates the surface of the skin. Materialists, this is Prabhupada, materialists think that sexual indulgence is the greatest happiness in this material world, and therefore they make elaborate plans to satisfy their senses, especially the genitals. This is generally found everywhere, and specifically found in the Western world, where there are regular arrangements to satisfy sex life in different ways. Actually, however, this has not made anyone happy. Scratching itches irritates the skin. The sex indulgence leads to more, doesn't lead to less. It doesn't lead to, now I'm satisfied. Haribol. Continuing, this is a classic Prabhupada example. To enjoy sex life is to suck one's own blood. There's not much more to be explained in this connection. The camel also sucks its own blood while chewing thorny twigs. The thorns the camel eats cut the tongue of the camel, and so blood begins to flow within the camel's mouth. The thorns, mixed with the fresh blood, create a taste for the foolish camel, and so he enjoys the thorn eating business with false pleasure. It's a good comparison. It's something that we hear about. In the Bhaktivedanta purport, we find this nice expression. Some of you may know who is Jamunacharya. Jamunacharya is a predecessor acharya of Ramanujacharya. Very elevated person. Since I've been engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, realizing ever new pleasure in him, whenever I think of sex pleasure, I spit at the thought, and my lips curl with distaste. Now, Yamunacharya, before he was Yamunacharya, was a Kshatriya. And by many procedures, he became freed from that upadi of being a Kshatriya, and he became an elevated acharya. And as an elevated acharya, sometimes his mind would go to what he used to be engaged in when he was a king or a ruler, sex indulgence. You want his attention, or are you looking at his watch? Okay, I'm distracted by your distraction. Okay. Jamunacharya had formerly been a great king who enjoyed sexual happiness in various ways. But since he later engaged himself in the service of the Lord, he enjoyed spiritual bliss and hated to think of sex life. If sexual thoughts came to him, he would spit with disgust. Now, I don't recommend spitting with disgust, but it gives an example of one who has this higher taste can look at this thing that's a lower taste and think, how abominable. There's a nice scene in in Prabhupada's time in Bhaktivedanta Manor. There was a whole month that he spent at Bhaktivedanta Manor, and with the promise, and he enjoyed it very much, dealing with the British refined people, lords and ladies and scholars and writers and VIP. So one time he was with a Franciscan monk, and they were talking it was an author. There was a Franciscan monk, and the Franciscan monk was speaking about being respectful to all organizations, and then regardless of their backgrounds and so forth. That kind of, you know, very pleasing talk. And Prabhupada asked, as a Franciscan monk, something like this: do you believe in the Ten Commandments? And the answer, of course, we believe in the Ten Commandments. Could you explain why, in the Christian religion, there's a very widespread practice that people eat meat? Because doesn't it say, "Thou shalt not kill"? And then they had this whole discussion that opened the door. And when Prabhupada was speaking on this principle, he was speaking in a gentlemanly manner to a gentleman, a refined gentleman, a dedicated gentleman. But there were some of his young Western followers that were in the room, sannyasis and this and that's, and they pounced on the guy. As far as not eating meat, and they hammered him. They didn't let him speak. They jumped on him. I mean, doesn't describe it exactly like that, but he then later said, it got simmered down, and he said, I came to visit the Bhaktivedanta Manor, and I didn't get a chance to speak because as soon as I started to speak, it was so dealt with in such an unpleasant manner. I didn't get to say what I wanted to say, and it kind of was expressing that was what was going on in the room, in Prabhupada's presence. And Prabhupada wasn't dealing with him like that. The point is, there's a way to deal with people that have, over-the-top attraction for sense indulgence. Meat eating was the topic at the time, but it could be any other topic. And the persons who were speaking very strongly to this Franciscan monk themselves were engaged in the same bad activity, but they had been relieved from that bad activity through Prabhupada's association, not by browbeating them, but by higher consciousness, and by lifting them to a place of higher consciousness. So it's an art to know what's right and what's wrong. That was one of the prior prayers that I covered in Virginia before I got here. But those who are sincere, then there's this whole detailed description given by our acharyas and Srila Prabhupada that even a slight amount of devotional service can deliver one to the stage of perfection. That was what was being said. Actually, that's in Prahlada's teachings to his classmates. So the power to discern right from wrong, that's a gift. And then how to exercise that gift depends on how much spiritual strength one has. But to not take that spiritual strength and use it like a stick and whack other people because they're not doing now what you know is to be done, something that's not to be done. I'm spending some time on, as a follower of an ardent appreciator of Prahlada, having proper knowledge and how to use that proper knowledge are two different things. How to apply it to ourselves and how to not impose it on others, but by higher consciousness to lift others by good example, as well as good speaking. Okay, so that's text 45, one of two verses. Here's text 46. Oh, Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are 10 prescribed methods on the path of liberation, path to liberation. So there's 10. You can count them. I did it twice. To remain silent, Monavrata. To observe vows. To amass all kinds of Vedic knowledge. That's 3. To undergo austerities. To study the Vedas and other Vedic literatures. To execute the duties of Varnashram Dharma. to explain the Shastras, to stay in a solitary place, to chant mantras silently, and to be absorbed in trance. So that's 10 in number. Now these are 10 methods, prescribed methods, on the path of liberation, all of which are to help one control the senses. But they're inadequate without bhakti. That's the point. These different methods for liberation are generally only a professional practice and means of livelihood for those who have not conquered their senses. Because such persons are falsely proud, these procedures may not be successful. No, they're Vedic, and they're good. They're recommended. It's authorized from Vedic texts. The path of liberation, methods on the path of liberation. So they're good. However, this is the key. The bhakti principle is that Krishna should be pleased. Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. That little phrase. Krishna Anushilanam. Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. Krishna is to be pleased. If they may do these items in the path of liberation, not for the purpose that Krishna will be pleased. When the Bhaktivedanta Manor opened, there was a gentleman who had been part of a Christian organization who observed the vow of silence for 23 years. That's a long time. 23 years. And then he started making sounds, chanting Hare Krishna. You get the idea. Without bhakti, he had some control of his power of speech, at least, by monavrata, one of the senses at least. But it's incomplete. They may not be successful in becoming truly liberated. And that there's another risk, and that other risk is that one can become one can become proud. So here's some images that show, enjoy the sound of silence. What's the sound of one hand clapping? That puzzle. There's other young boys being trained in mantra meditation. There's the dower left, that's a yogi doing some interesting yoga asana. And there's persons doing some procedures on the lower right side, some kind of puja. And so one supposing one is good at all these things, really good at anyone or all of these things. However, it brings some benefit. However, if the heart is not pure, then the senses aren't controlled. This is a math equation. Which amongst the young people here is good at math? Who's good at math? You good at math? Okay. This is the math equation. You know who was Queen Kunti? Queen Kunti, the mother of the Pandavas, Queen Kunti. So when Krishna was leaving Hastinapur after the Kurukshetra battle was over and Yudhishthira's the emperor and everything's nice, Krishna's leaving, going back to Dwarka. He's on the chariot, and she comes right into the middle of the assembly because she has privileges, right up to Krishna's chariot. And she doesn't say, Krishna, don't go, but she's saying, Krishna, don't go. She offers prayers. In one of those prayers, she recites, Janma Aishvarya Shutra Shri Bir Eda Mana Manak Puman. That there are four things mentioned that are the fruits of piety. Janma, high birth. Aishvarya, wealth. Shruta, good education. Shri, beauty. Good birth, high parentage, good birth. Janma, Aishvarya, wealth. For the persons that are pious may often become wealthy, become capable of knowledge, So there's fruits of piety. Now, supposing someone is pious and has fruits of piety, but their heart's not pure. So this is the math equation. The fruits of piety plus a heart that's not pure equals pride. It's a good math formula. Fruits of piety plus a heart that's not pure, pride. It's really easy, and it's common. We've experienced it. People that are very knowledgeable, they're not necessarily devotional, and their pride is you never know when you touch this spot or that spot when there's going to be an outburst of anger. It should be respectful anyways, but it's one of the ways of testing someone's purity is they're not necessarily disrespected, but not respected. Anyway, pride. It's a big problem. And so, because when there's pride destroys everything good. Supposing there's good and there's pride, it gets misused. Guaranteed, pride destroys everything good. Beware of the beast named pride. And what Prabhupada writes in the purport here, pride blurs one's vision to see Krishna. So here's a little image of blurring your vision to see Krishna. You can't see properly. So there's eyeglasses that adjust the focus on the image on the eyeball. But pride just does the opposite. You can't see things properly. What to say, see Krishna properly. It blocks access to Krishna, pride. So it's not, the message is not to avoid piety. Be pious, that's fantastic. And be Krishna conscious. Karma Mishra Bhakti. We discussed this yesterday. What's the fruit of Karma Mishra Bhakti? Nishkam karma. Nishkam, having no material desire. Nishkam karma, free from material desire. And you can be peaceful, but you can't necessarily be sustained in that, because all it takes is a turn the dial a little bit, time or circumstance of time, and then there's deviation. Is it possible to not get deviated? Yes, and that's where there's shelter. That's bhakti, when there's the place of shelter. It's very simple in principle. Now, to get there, one has to let go of pride, false ego. So it's another image showing the same thing. Limited and insentient. That's meditation. There's meditation on a candle, by the way. So that's a type of meditation, mindfulness. And then there's the unlimited, and where Krishna is reciprocating, not an insentient being, but the Supreme Person reciprocating with the devotee. And that's the effect, at least potentially, the effect of chanting. Is it possible to chant mechanically? Yes. I know some people that chant mechanically. But still, there's benefit beyond meditating on a candle, because the Supreme Person, even the shadow of the Supreme Person, is present. It is uplifting in a way that other forms of insentient meditation don't work. We saw this very same image yesterday. Maybe you recognize the image. And the purpose of human life is to attain liberation from material entanglement. This is a verse, another one of the celebrated verses that Prabhupada referred to many, many, many times, the definition of mukti. Muktir hitvanyata rupam svarupena vyavastati. Mukti is not just cessation of material existence or cessation of material entanglement. That's a byproduct of bhakti. Nirvana is a byproduct of bhakti. For the Buddhist, not pointing fingers, but it's just an incomplete system. Cessation of material existence doesn't mean awakening of spiritual existence. Voidism is not awakening of who we really are. It's an abnegation of who we aren't. That's okay. But that's not what spiritual is. Spiritual is awakening of who we really are. So here's the teaching in this verse. These different methods for liberation are generally only professional. This is directly Prahlada's words. Professional means a practice for those who have not conquered the senses. Because such persons are falsely proud, these procedures may not be successful. The termination of material existence may not be successful. Only a rare person this is now Canto 6, saying the same thing. Only a rare person who has adopted complete, unalloyed devotional service to Krishna can uproot the weeds of sinful actions with no possibility that they will revive. He can do this simply by discharging devotional service, just as the sun can immediately dissipate fog by its rays. The celebrated verse, Canto 6. It's a prelude to the whole Ajamila story. Almost done? Nice image, someone paying obeisances in this mood of humility. Kevalaya bhaktya. It's in this purport. If one simply engages in devotional service to the Lord, all 10 methods of liberation are automatically observed. But not only automatically observed, they're empowered by bhakti. Prahlada Maharaj's proposal is that such processes may be recommended for the Ajitendriya, those who cannot conquer their senses. Devotees, however, have already conquered their senses. Sarva upadi vinir muktam tat paratvena nirmalam. Prahlada Maharaj is a great teacher. Of course, he's giving the teachings that were given to him from Narada. And Narada's a great teacher because he's giving teachings that were given to him by Lord Brahma. And Brahma's a great teacher because he's giving teachings, disciplic succession, given to him by Lord Krishna, or Hayagriva, or the personality of Godhead. So if you have good teachings and a good teacher, then you have a direction that Prahlada is giving us. He's giving to the Lord Nrsingadev, but Lord Nrsingadev doesn't need an education. He's just glorifying him. So it's for us. Same as Krishna speaking Bhagavad Gita, it's for us. It's for Arjuna, but it's for us. So that we can proceed towards the path of beyond the distractions of unlimited material allures, too many, so many, and go straight on the path to Krishna, at least as straight on the path to Krishna as our capacity permits. And I want to end with this, because tomorrow is Nrsinga Chaturdasi. 3 times so far, now this is the 4th time, a description in Hari Bhakti Vilas of who was Prahlada in his previous life is presented. And a preamble to that is the Nrsinga Chaturdasi Vrata is eternal. It's directly a statement in Hari Bhakti Vilas. So that means even before Prahlad came, and before anything, it's a eternal principle. It's in relation to the appearance of Lord Nrsingadev, Nrsinga Chaturdasi. But it's an eternal principle even before Lord Nrsingadev appears. And then he appears. So before he appeared, Narada explains to Prahlad, Lord Nrsingadev explains to Prahlad, how did I become such a dear devotee to you? So he describes that in his previous life he was a fallen brahmana, this and that and the other thing, and he had a prostitute girlfriend, and they did not nice things together. But one particular day, unknown to either of them, they got in a quarrel, and because it was a very upsetting type of quarrel, they fasted all day and all night. They had a sleepless night. And because of observing that unknowingly, in her next life, the prostitute became an apsara. Then after that life went back to Godhead. You become Prahlad. You got Narada's association, and you're my great devotee. It's a longer description. So tomorrow's Nrsingadev's appearance day. So consider Nrsinga Chaturdasi Vrata as something that each of us can do, whatever that may be. You don't have to do exactly what they did, but some kind of, because it's in a very auspicious day. It's an eternal auspicious day. Ekadasis are also very auspicious, and it's another super auspicious day. So think of something that you can do in honor of Lord Nrsingadev's appearance, and make an offering to him, another kind. Wishing, remember the prayers of Prahlad, wishing as Prahlad is praying. At the end of this chapter, the beginning of chapter 10, he doesn't want something material. He's asking for two things. He's asking for three things. He's asking for pure devotion. He already has it. He's asking for the association of great souls like Narada. And he's asking for the deliverance of others from their suffering condition. So that's the benefit that he's looking for. And as we're offering something to Lord Nrsingadev on his appearance date tomorrow, consider what you can offer and what sankalpa, what kind of purpose you may wish to fulfill by making some offering to Lord Nrsingadev. Okay. The end. Let's see if there's some discussion. He's got a little microphone. You got a better one this time.
Samaras, very wonderful lecture. So you mentioned the fruits of Sakama Karma Yoga is the Niskama Karma Yoga. The fruits of Sakama, like karma with mixed with desire. That the result of that is Niskama Karma Yoga. Is that Niskama Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, they are same?
Well, something that you said in the preamble, I'd like to edit. May I?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah. Karma Yoga is two things. Performance of prescribed duty without attachment. You know the verse from Bhagavad Gita. Karma eva adhikaraste ma paleshu kadashana. You're entitled to, so that's Karma Yoga. Well, you're not entitled to the fruits. So what do you do with the fruits? You offer the fruits of Vishnu. So those two things. Perform prescribed duty without attachment and offer the fruits to Krishna. That's Karma Yoga. And the fruit of that is Nishkam Karma Yoga, or Nishkam bhakti. But there's a mix because there's some affinity for this upadhi thing, according to who I am, that I have a duty to do. I'm a sannyasi. I don't have a wife and children, so I don't have the duties of a householder. Someone else may have the duties of a householder. So according to our duties, we perform prescribed duties. So karma yoga is perform the prescribed duty and give the fruit to Krishna. Yad karoshi, yad asnasi, that verse. That's karma yoga. Now, karma yoga is made effective by mixture with bhakti. Say, without the mixture of bhakti, it's not effective. When there's mixture with bhakti, then it's karma yoga. Then it's effective. And one can come to nishkam, karma yoga. Does that answer your question?
So I believe the Niskam Karma Yoga and the Bhakti Yoga both are same
No.
because Niskam is without any
Bhakti yoga, by definition, bhakti is pure. The first of the two definitions we gave, sarva upadhi, so the first of the definitions, anyabhilasha to shunyam jnana karma janavratam, squeaky clean, no karma, no gyan. That's bhakti. So that can be bhakti that's mixed. This is the final 5 chapters of this canto. Bhakti that's unmixed, bhakti that's mixed with karma, bhakti that's mixed with gyan. And there are different outcomes. Bhakti that's unmixed, bhakti that's mixed with karma, bhakti that's mixed with gyan. But bhakti is the underpinning or the foundation of all three. But when you use the bhakti, that I'm editing, bhakti means pure. But normally bhakti's mixed. We still have other stuff going on inside. Jnana and karma. More maybe this, more maybe that, or a combination, but mix commonly. And the idea is to get to unmixed. Bhakti is the execution of that which takes one to the unmixed position. And it's an important definition. I'm pounding on it a little bit or drilling on it a little bit because it's important. Yeah, right behind you. Were you half raising your hand? We bypassed you. Go ahead, and we'll come back.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
My extension to the question from him only for the Nishkam Karma Yoga. This looks to be quite a tricky word and how to use it. Basically, my question is how to deal with regarding the goals.
How to do what?
Goals of the life.
Okay.
Goals of the life, dreams of the life. How do you engage that with the Nishkam Karma Yoga? If you make Nishkam Karma Yoga, you are not planned to do anything then. How do you motivate yourself without having a dream, without having a goal?
Oh, that's easy. Love. Not lust. Love.
No, I'm talking about my personal goals. Probably.
I'm speaking about you personally.
No, individual personal
Your question is how to motivate yourself. And I'm saying, if you want the real thing, then go for the real thing. If you don't want the real thing, then haribol. You get something else. But your question is how to motivate yourself to this higher position. So to do Nishkam Karma Yoga properly, bhakti is foundational. I mean, it's high. It's not Mount Everest, but it's a high mountain. And the high mountain is squeaky clean. Just my duties in life without any attachment to the results. So who does something without wanting something? And that's the kind of what the question is. How do I motivate myself to?
Exactly. That's the question.
Yes, I got your number. So how do I motivate myself to become unmotivated? Having no material. So then my answer very immediately, could you just lean in the blue shirt? Just, yeah, because we're trying to do eye contact and you wobble back and forth and it's kind of can't. Okay. By attachment, so their attachment at the heart level is needed. Supposing I don't have attachment to transcendence, I have attachment to something else. Because at the heart level. So then I can be attached to this and that and the other thing or combination and, and it kind of changes in the course of a day or course of a year or course of a decade and course of life. It keeps, like the clouds in the sky keep changing. So the configuration of what I'm attached to may change. But I'm going to be attached to something. So the answer to how to motivate myself to get to the position where I have no material motivation is have a spiritual motivation. And spiritual motivation is love. And then there's something short of that. It's mixed. And that's where this Nishkam Karma Yoga comes in. There's a mix. I still have, I'm not there yet. I'm doing my duty. Let's just speak of you as being a very virtuous and dutiful man. You're a virtuous and dutiful man. And you're practicing offering the result of that virtue unto Krishna, whatever may come. Janma, Aishvara, Shuta, or Shri, or combination. You just give that, it all goes to Krishna. The bell rings. You become a Nishkam Karma Yogi. But it's not going to happen if where the fruit goes, the fruits of your prescribed duty, where does that go? If there's still, I call it the two-pocket program. So much for Krishna, so much for me. So much for Krishna, so much for me. Me, Krishna, Krishna. Nishkam Karma Yoga. It's the me pocket. Now supposing there's no more me pocket, it's just Krishna pocket. Then it's bhakti. Nishkam Karma Yoga becomes bhakti. This definition, this question that came up earlier. Unmixed. Unmixed. But there's a mix. But I'm not there yet. So I'm striving for Nishkam Karma Yoga. And again, the last 5 chapters, I've said this 6 times. Here it is, 7th time. The last 5 chapters, it's Yudhishthira asking Narada Muni, supposing you're not at the level of Prahlada, how can you get there? Which is another way of asking what your question is, just a further step to your question. How do I get motivated to be unmotivated? Love. And it takes a while. A loving relationship isn't snapping your fingers. It's not charm or I like the way she smiles. I like the way he smiles. I like the way he dances. Or like it's something far more deep than that. Bhakti is very deep, like an ocean that doesn't have a bottom. Okay, pass the microphone up.
Krishna Maharaj.
Now come where I can see you. Thank you.
My question here is, in regarding this one, what about new devotees or who are probably not like a full devotee kind of?
Okay.
Can they practice both the 10 methods and?
Yeah. It's included. Devotees have already conquered their sense of joy. So those 10 principles are subsets. They're within bhakti. We'd say it the other way. Suppose one does those 10, that's the verse. Suppose one does those 10 without bhakti. It's insufficient. It's good. It's good. It's insufficient. layered on top of bhakti, and then it can become more than sufficient. It can help one come to, but it's the bhakti that brings one to the stage of perfection, not those 10. But back to your question, can one? Yes. And but titrate. It's just little by little. We don't impose rules. We want people to offer things with love and devotion to Krishna. Patram, pushpam, palam, toyam. And that's how it starts.
Basically, it is like conditional devotional service. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what it starts with.
Mm-hmm. Where it starts is people don't even know what they're doing. They see others doing, so they do. Like offering a flower. Many people will come to the temple tomorrow. That it's ritualistic. They come because because it's what you do, what you're supposed to do on a religious holiday. You go to the temple and with pranams before the deity, and you look down and say some prayers, and that's it. Take some prasad. It's ritualistic. It's okay. It's a beginning. Or with Western people, it's not ritualistic at all. It's just it's something else. They like the prasadam, or whatever it is they like to hear, and then so by hearing they hear the Maha Mantra. That's purifying. So little by little. In the beginning, little by little. Not rules, not there's 10. It's little by little, something. Yeah. Rupanduga. Yes. Okay, he's first, you're second.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj. My question is based on the terminology.
Based on what?
A word that Krishna uses on one of the quotation that you had shown there.
Which one?
When Krishna uses the term mat etam is my opinion. Etan jnana mata mama.
Yeah.
Places
Okay.
in. Now, when Krishna is speaking a message either to Uddhava or any other personality, you don't hear of this my opinion there. Krishna is very absolute there.
Yeah, he's absolute.
But when he speaks in Bhagavad Gita many times, especially when he changes the topic to yoga practice, to karma, in almost every places, he intends to use the term, this is my opinion. Is he
That's
welcoming the
okay.
opinion of somebody else also?
It's okay. It's in one of the verses that we just recited
Yeah.
from Bhagavad Gita. That's what
Mhm.
you're referring to. He's a gentleman. We don't do that. We speak what Krishna says. It's not my opinion. We speak what Krishna says. But Krishna says my opinion, just being very gentle. His opinion is fact. Our opinion is, whatever it is. Wishy-washy. Come see, come saw. And his opinion is fact. He's just being very gentle. So why is he being gentle? It's just part of his nature. Sometimes he'll say other things. He's gentle.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for a very nice class. My question is that Krishna being absolute and supremely purifying, how come it does not rub on the demons? And
Oh, it does.
They don't become pure.
Oh, he does. What happened to Hiranyakashipu? He got relieved of all that contamination. Well, he was a little hard-headed. Shishupal, a little hard-headed. That means, his contamination was thick. In part, in those particular cases, due to envy. The enmity was arising from envy. They didn't want to submit to anybody. And there's somebody that you have to submit to? No. So he was kind to those. Your question was, are those Krishna's supreme pure? Are those persons affected? Yes. Some persons are hard cases, so he can break the shell and free them from that shell. Yes, and it takes a while for filthy places. Right? And, but ultimately, because he is the supreme pure, they become completely pure. Anyone out there in the... pass the microphone, please. Can't hear you.
Is that oh,
There we go.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much for the class. Earlier in the class you mentioned, I'm forgetting my question. Helping people, you don't want to, ascend by yourself. You want everyone to come with
Yes.
you, right?
Yeah. That's Prahlada, not me.
Hare Krishna. So how is it that one can encourage or assist someone towards Krishna consciousness without disturbing the karma that they're going through, that they're learning from? How are we able to assist them without disturbing their karma? I hope that question makes sense.
I think I got it. It sounds like what you're asking is what somebody else asked the other day, which is, is it not bhakti disrupts karma or disrespects karma or something like that? So we bhakti is voluntary. So for someone to engage in, they can unknowingly engage in bhakti. That, someone can take prasadam and not know it's prasadam. Someone can hear kirtan and not know it's transcendental. Someone, something. They can get some unknowing, agata sukriti it's called, agata, without knowing. Do something beneficial without knowing. By accumulation of Gyata Sukriti, then one may not, but one may come to the position of knowingly doing something beneficial. Just a real simple example is Harinam. It's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did and what his followers do. We go into the public and some people like it and some people don't like it, etc. But it's beneficial even for those that don't like it. Now, your question is that disrupting their karma? That's your question. It's lifting that covering, the heaviness of the covering, and it's lightening that load. It's light counteracts darkness. So yes, but it's not disturbing or disrespecting their karma. They're still gonna, the next moment after unknowingly hearing or unknowingly eating or something, they're gonna make other free will choices. And, commonly people make the same free will choices they made the moment ago before the unknowing devotional service. But so yes, is to disrupt that conditioning, but still there's conditioning there. I'm going to make choices. So generally speaking, the cleansing is gradual, because conditioning, I'm habituated to something. I'm habituated to lust, or I'm habituated to anger, or I'm habituated to something. Eating in unmentionable things. So I'm habituated to it. If one When one is habituated to something, habits continue commonly. So it takes a while for purification. But your question specifically, if I understood it correctly, we're disrupting the flow of karma into their conditioning by adding light or adding bhakti. Knowingly, we're doing that.
So if we're, hello,
Yeah.
is that good? So if we're knowingly helping people unknowingly
Yeah.
observe, it's
It's okay. It's okay.
okay.
It's okay because Krishna's smiling. We're doing this for Krishna, not, me doing something to go rescue the world or something like that. No way. Okay? Krishna's smiling. That's the meditation. Okay. Now you're smiling. Okay. Anyone else back there? Looks like we're done. Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanandi, Prahlad Maharaj ki, Nishinga Chaturdasi ki, Gaur Premanandi. Oh.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj, so much for a wonderful class. As Maharaj mentioned, we are celebrating Narasimha Chaturdashi tomorrow.